All right, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals today a little bit about combining different exercises and making sure that we work muscles through all of their functions. And I'm going to highlight the importance of, if we're really chasing maximal development, of why we need to do big compounds and isolation movements, that it would behoove us to do all of these things. And I think what we need to always keep in mind, big movements are always going to be the foundation of our training. Right? Why are they going to be the foundation? Because they're efficient. In other words, look at the bench press here, or a chin up, or a squat, or a deadlift, or a Romanian deadlift, a leg press, any of these movements, right? These big exercises, barbell rows. What do they bring to the table? They allow us to work multiple muscles very, very effectively. Okay, they work multiple muscles. Now, many people will point out, but only one of those muscles might reach failure, so the others are getting growth stimulus, just not maybe optimal growth stimulus. And that's a valid point, but it's still going to be a lot more efficient. So in other words, if you're doing most of your chest training with a press, like you see me doing a flat bench and a reverse grip bench here, right? You see me doing both. They both work triceps. And in fact, they work triceps a little bit differently. And I don't think it's been proven in the lab that the long head gets hit harder on the reverse grip bench, but all of us who do it feel that long head more. Whereas we know in the lab, the lateral head really gets hit hardest on a bench press. In fact, in hypertrophy studies, it oftentimes beats extensions for lateral head growth, like when it's been studied in people. So by doing a big compound movement like that, we can work our chest for a couple of exercises that still work our triceps and work certain parts of our triceps extremely effectively. Maybe not necessarily the whole tricep, but certain parts. So yes, there's a good reason to start our workouts with big exercises. They're just very efficient, okay? And they really lay the foundation because they let us work, again, multiple muscles, oftentimes close to failure, but at least one of them can be taken to the limits. It will probably be your chest that fails on a wide grip bench press like that. But it's also working the front delts, different parts of the shoulder. There's a lot involved. Okay, so if we do something like that and we're wanting to really hammer our triceps, we don't have to do as much tricep work afterwards because we've covered a lot of the tricep development right there, right? We've covered a lot of tricep ground by doing that. So in the case of like those, I did those two. This is all from the same workout. Obviously, I did some other exercises in there, some more chest stuff. But because it's a chest and tricep day, I don't have to come in and try to come up with a dozen angles to hit my triceps. I just hit my triceps with two big presses already. So then afterwards, what then might we look at? Okay, well, let's work some other angles with isolation, right? So if you notice, I picked kind of 3 different movements in there to balance it out. So I did like a traditional skull crusher, which really works all 3 heads of the tricep fairly balanced. It's a good balanced base builder for the triceps, okay? So even though the pressing is probably a little more lateral head dominant, yeah, we're going to work the lateral head again. So we hit all of that. Well, then afterwards, I did a behind the head extension on an incline bench. Well, that really focuses on the long head a lot more. Now, again, we could argue to some extent the long head does get hit on that reverse grip, at least if we go off feel and what we feel contract. At least for me and some other lifters I know. But then we can go ahead and make sure that we double down and we hit it by hitting that isolation movement. Okay? We're hitting that isolation movement then for it. Well, that's really going to make sure that we hit it. Well, then the other concern, what about balance? Because, that's 4 different exercises we've now worked the triceps with, but, and I did like 3 sets of each. So that's like 12 sets, but what if I want to get a little more? So then I also threw in those dumbbell extensions. Why? Because I feel like there might be a potential for imbalance, maybe with the dipping on the side when I do those behind the head extensions. So then I finished off with a dumbbell movement that ensures the way that I'm performing it, because there's no way to cheat on it. Now, when people do dumbbells on compound movements, you can get imbalances due to the way you shift to the side. But if you're doing a true strict isolation movement, they can end up being very balanced in terms of the development. So I did that to balance it out, just to make sure that the left and the right were both completely fatigued, right? Took them to similar levels of fatigue by picking that dumbbell movement. So what did we end up doing here? When you look at all of it, when it's all said and done, we did a press that will really hammer the lateral and medial head. Did a second press that probably hits those but may hit the long head, subject to debate. Then we did a balance movement that works all three heads. Then we did an extension that absolutely is dominant on the long head. And then we finished up with a dumbbell movement that works each side, ensuring that it's even development through, again, an exercise that works all three heads very effectively. All three heads of the tricep get worked on this dumbbell movement. It even really hits the long head well because of that stretch at the bottom. So by doing this, what have we done? We've ensured that our triceps have been worked from multiple angles. We've ensured that every function of the tricep, because the tricep is involved not just with elbow extension, but also with that shoulder extension, right? Yeah, so that's why we want to do that behind the head stuff. So we've worked all the functions. We make sure all three heads got worked, and we ensured some even development on both sides by coming through and finishing up there. So for someone like me who triceps are a bit of a weak link in my physique, again, all my years of powerlifting, I didn't do enough arms always. Limited my physique, doing something like this will ensure that we get good development, right? And that's how we do this. This is why when you have muscles that you're saying, hey, I need this muscle to be maximally developed, you need to think in terms of both big movements and small movements, right? Because we're always going to base build with our big exercises. And then you need to look at it and say, how do I fill in any gaps with the small movements, right? Make sure that we work every function of the muscle. We make sure that we work every head of the muscle. And in some cases, even making sure that we do some exercises to balance it out. And you see me doing a lot of that, even in my own training, like doing the leg extensions with a single leg to finish after all my squats and other stuff. Again, trying to balance that development out. This is how you maximally develop a muscle. And it's a little bit different from strength training, which I have historically done mostly. And I coach both of these things. Right? I coach clients in both areas, and I have some clients who care about both. But if you're trying to maximally develop a muscle, this is the sort of process that you need to use to do that. And so you need to know the functions of the muscle. You need to know what heads different exercises focus more on. You need to know everything that the muscle does. If you want a bigger bicep, it would behoove you to know what all the bicep does, what all of its roles are. Because you need to probably train any role that can have a hypertrophic response. Okay? Again, if you're trying to get a muscle as big as possible. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.